and now things in this dark universe have progressed to this point. Could it be that these insectoids are descended from fallen angels, who have as part of their deepest soul memory that they once lived in a heavenly realm of light and beauty? If there is a connection between the alien entertainment concept and the real insectoid aliens, we might compare research-derived information with fictional features. We hear that the insectoids, which appear to be creators and masters of both the tall and short grays, abduct people, take their reproductive material, create a fetus with mixed DNA, then implant that fetus back into the woman. Could the movie Alien, which alien forces its embryo down the throat of a person, be analogous to the reality of women being forced to gestate hybrid fetuses? Notice that the infamous facehugger, which comes out of an egg and wraps around a human head, is 8-legged, but with a tail, the same as a scorpion, which is an arachnid-type animal species. A scriptural tie-in would be Luke 10:19, "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." I think Jesus knew who the two major enemies were, the reptilians, called serpents, and the insectoids, called scorpions. Part of the horror of the aliens from the movie requires darkness, and I wonder if the darkness where we cannot see is analogous to what Dr. David Jacobs states: it is irrefutable that they do not want us to know what they are doing. He also states that secrecy is a major component of the abduction program, and exposing them may be the best way to fight them. Perhaps the darkness symbolizes the secrecy of the aliens, and for that matter, the government. The alien from the movie is vastly superior in strength to a man, so an unarmed human is essentially helpless against an alien warrior. We do not know if the insectoids, which are also very slender, have super strength compared with a man, but this might be a clue they do, or it might represent the vast technological superiority which no man can resist. This superiority is so complete they can take people out of their homes on a vast scale, wipe their memories of it, and plant them back into their homes, even carrying alien fetuses, and only a small percentage of the population can believe it, much less do anything about it. Dr. Carla Turner well states that any information we do receive might be designed disinformation, even what we have supposedly gotten against the will of the aliens. Could it be that something like the alien warrior exists, even the black body, elongated head, and skull-crushing proboscis, but its existence is fully concealed except for this vision given to H.R. Geiger? One of my strongest memories of interest growing up in a suburb of America's movie-making capital city, Hollywood, Los Angeles, was the alien from the Alien series. Something about it perked my interest, and I always looked for pictures of the alien in books or magazines which might feature it. I read novel-type books and even comics based on the Alien franchise, and so naturally I was interested in H.R. Geiger, the artist who created it. I bought one of his books, which I liked, although I was not as interested in the rest of his concepts, which were weird and gloomy. What was fascinating to me, however, is the interesting textures and shapes, and his method of using an airbrush directly against a large canvas to create his works. The original alien concept, as it became known, is really a combination of the screenwriter Dan O'Bannon and director Ridley Scott taking Geiger's concept and fleshing it out. So the concept we see is not entirely Geiger's creation, but it could be a greater spirit was at work in these various people, and it manifested into an intended outcome. It is interesting now, looking back at my life growing up in a fully secular household, how there was no serious consideration of evil as far as Satan, demons, or hell as they might exist in media. I had no idea back then that the evil of the enemy was intertwined with media and art, even in the most goodly-seeming movies and books. It never occurred to me that the artwork I loved so much as a kid, and even emulated to some extent, might be a manifestation of evil spirits bent on the destruction of man. That is the problem with ignorance, and a good argument for raising children with serious biblical teaching. Now that I have experienced a taste of the evil that rules this world, and investigated subjects such as the reptilians, New World Order, and satanic symbolism, now I look at H.R. Geiger in a different light. Geiger claimed he was not a Satanist, but I think his artwork and photos of him tell a different story. The five-pointed star is one of the most well-known symbols of Satan, along with the bowls and candles at least looks like satanic ritual or affinity thereof. One might comment he was just going for a dark, mysterious look, and a satanic ritual setting fit the mood. Here is Geiger with his friend and assistant. I wonder how well Geiger would have liked him if he turned that cross right side up one day. Here you have Geiger with a poster of Aleister Crowley and the Illuminati triangle symbol, seemingly telling his association or affinity thereof. This picture in particular is like a grand billboard for Satan, complete with the Baphomet transgender goat, five-pointed stars, serpents, and what is a hallmark of his weirdness, extremely sadistic, beastly eroticism in a mechanized setting. I would not claim to understand everything in these paintings, or what causes them, but I am speculating as to possible meanings. Notice the dark wings of the fallen angel behind the Satan Baphomet figure, and the female figures on either side look like they are plugged into some kind of mechanized breeding machine. Also notice the skulls at the base of the Satan figure, and on either side what looks like little aborted alien fetuses. Behind the main subjects there are ghostly forms of demons in the steam. And in the background what looks like the pipes of a giant machine. Could this machine represent the alien-human hybrid program, mechanized, organized, and headed up by Satan, represented by the goat beast in the center? Do the serpents running through the picture represent reptilians? If you look carefully, you can see in some areas of the serpents what looks like demonic faces, like babies crammed into the mouth of serpents. Is the serpent eating souls? This painting has a similar inspiration, except a female being seems to be the central figure, though the Baphomet Satan head crowns the giant headpiece. Could this be a vision of sorts for the Queen of Evil I found listed in Scripture as the daughter of Babylon? And the strange woman in Proverbs, whose house once entered does not allow one to escape. Here's some scripture regarding that. Proverbs 2:16. To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words, which forsaketh the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house incline unto death, and her paths unto the dead. None that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life. The female figure on the left also has a large headpiece, and notice what looks like a Freemason compass and square symbol in the middle. Again, the women look like they are hooked up to breeding machines, giving them pleasure. And I wonder if this might indicate something none of the abductees or hybrids have mentioned, which is that in other places on the ships or in underground bases, there are rooms full of females used primarily for producing babies. It could be that abducted human females are only a small specialized portion of the baby-producing operation. I heard a rumor to that effect, that in places like Dulce, they have women in cages used as incubators to provide a continual stream of babies. It is strange how he paints these sick and suffering-looking baby heads at the top of these condom-like shapes, as though there is some kind of ugly death associated with this whole situation. Again, notice the mechanized look to everything in Geiger's vision, as though what he is seeing is advanced technology of the aliens. Also notice behind the central female figure an inverted, clearly wooden cross signifying the Antichrist character of these creatures. You will notice a continuing theme of dead-looking babies, as though he is seeing a vision of this. I wonder if this is related to what many of the abductees report, seeing huge rooms full of containers with gestating babies. Could this be a vision of the demonic realm, where perhaps many souls are abducted, never to be seen again, and this dimension is actually where the insectoids as well as the reptilians are from? These images might be what life is really like there. As exorcist Chris LaSala puts it, like a bunch of filthy serpents and spiders and creepy crawly things all piled on top of each other and running around. It is hard to make any tangible conclusion about another dimension where we cannot test anything, but from what I have heard, it is a real place with many things similar to our third dimension. I have heard that these dimensions are not as solid or static as ours, like the reported fifth dimension, where you can create things just from thought. Even so, there is a form of life which has living and dying, and an economy of some kind. So what we might be seeing with the aliens and their ships are just the more intelligent demons which have the technology to cross over into our dimension and perform operations. This would explain why nobody can find or see in a continual way these so-called huge alien ships. They are not in this dimension. I don't know, but my feeling is CERN is an attempt at a permanent doorway between this world and the demonic realm, which they will fail to realize, as this scripture describes, Psalm 21:11. For they intended evil against thee. They imagined a mischievous device, which they are not able to perform. So maybe the demons trying to get God are creating a doorway into the demonic dimension to get allies to come and attack the Lord and his people. It seems natural that people would be fascinated with death, as it is a major part of life and perhaps the single greatest fear man has. But there is something else which alerts me to a source of constant fascination with death and its symbols. Wisdom from Proverbs tells us that all who hate her love death, as though hating her, perhaps a symbol of life, has the effect of causing souls to seek and love things related to her opposite, death. Proverbs 8:36. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All that hate me love death. It makes sense that people who hate Jerusalem would turn their affection in the opposite direction, death. Geiger seems fascinated with death, and his artwork seems to glorify symbols of death, like the skull. The alien itself somewhat resembles a walking skeleton, which, Skeletons tend to be a staple image of death fascination culture. There could be many factors involved in trends, but I think there is a hatred of the spirit of life in fads like gothic dress, women wearing black widow's dresses, and runny dark mascara. Also, I think the continual fascination with zombies and teenage murder movies are a manifestation of the fascination with death resulting from hating life. By loving death and celebrating it the way Geiger did with his art, it makes a statement. That statement is, I hate God, I hate His Spirit, and I reject His salvation, which is life. That may seem too dark to be true, but in fact I find that is exactly the message of people who embrace the death fascination culture. Many young people may simply be drawn into the death culture because they saw its style growing up and thought it was cool. But my feeling is people choose this as a way to express their contempt for God. The anger and contempt comes from their dissatisfaction, which is that instead of looking to God's Word to learn about why we are born into a dissatisfying situation, they decide to rebel, and this eventually leads them into a union with Satan's spirit. The sad thing, of course, is they never submit themselves to God and accept the challenge to receive eternal life, which is offered through Jesus on the cross. Rebels never read God's Word to find out about how they with Him can be given a new life, one where we are not dissatisfied, and even with no pain, physical or emotional, but only joy on our heads, looking forward to the things to come. Revelation 21:4. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. The more I look at Geiger's work, the more I feel he was directly inspired by the demonic realm. You see again and again the theme of women wrapped in machinery, as though plugged into a mechanized breeding machine, and there is often a baby or fetus of some kind in the machine. I notice that there is a sort of sexual feeding back into the self, or a being that is part of the woman or coming out of the woman, turning back into herself. I think this indicates something like a cycle of interbreeding where the demonic alien hybrids give birth, then their genetics are spliced back into the mother, or the offspring interbreed with the parents to maintain a desired genetic quality. This could be a vision of what Dr. David Jacobs' research shows, the interbreeding of hybrids and putting alien fetuses back into the abductees. If one considers the reality of the demonic realm, chances are there are horrors in that place we could not imagine, with extreme perverse realities. If the mantis aliens and reptilians are demons from the demonic dimension, and the insectoids in particular have the technology to cross over into the Earth realm, then the abduction phenomenon and elements of reproductive operations might just be a glimpse into the mechanization process that is going on here. I get the sense of a massive operation where women by the millions are plugged into machines which continually impregnate them for the most rapid production of hybrid babies. This might have developed over great periods of time in the dark realm of an eat or be eaten situation, and this is an ultimate supremacy tactic whereby sheer numbers is the factor of supremacy. Notice in the pictures, the women seem to be in ecstasy while they are plugged into these machines, and in that realm, the females are in a sense rewarded for being baby machines by being in constant sexual pleasure. In fact, witnesses to the early MK Ultra project focused on mind control by torture and separation of memory thereby, but also by extreme sexual stimulation. It reminds me of a subplot of the Dune novels by Frank Herbert, where in his book Heretics of Dune, there are women of ultra-advanced control of men through sexual techniques. It is common knowledge a primary tool of the devil is exploitation of sexual desire to destroy people with their own choices. If the devils, through Satan, indeed have control of the world through America and all major governments, and the insectoid breeding program is part of his plan to take over the earth, it would also make every sense to use sexual needs of humans not just to pull their souls into hell, but to produce the largest demonic armies possible and send them through the CERN gate when it is ready to take over the earth. To that end, the abduction hybrid program may just be the tip of the iceberg and part of a massive effort to recruit as many humans into the program as they can. To do this, they might be using multifaceted subliminal mind control to get as many humans to freely cooperate with the program as they can. My sense is that sexual stimulation via extremely low-frequency broadcast associated with elements of the breeding program is being used. Such elements broadcast might be positive association with abduction or being hooked up to machines or continual artificial impregnation, birthing, rape, or having fetuses inserted vaginally. This could be pouring down from satellites or beamed through cell phone towers, television, computers, and penetrating the minds of humans right now. This might be combined with abduction in a scenario where people experience extreme sexual ecstasy in a breeding machine, but they have no memory of it whatsoever. They have tested and found a way that when a person has been programmed with enough of this, they can trigger a response and introduce the human to that situation, knowing their sexual desire is so strongly tied to it, they will cooperate, even though the reality when they first experience it is horrifying. Then, after a while of being plugged into these sexual stimulation machines, they become so inebriated with sexual pleasure they become addicted to it, even though it is horrific imprisonment where they cannot even get up and walk around. As horrible and unimaginable as this sounds, sexual gratification in association with these elements might be exactly how Satan and his beasts are gaining control of humanity. The program is so secret that almost no one knows what is really happening, but perhaps people who have chosen to go along with it are crossed over into the demonic realm, and there they know but are imprisoned there because of their own choices. After being in that realm long enough, the humans themselves might start to become like the beasts, which might be the vision of part man, part beast, or man that becomes beast-like. The reality, however, is that the demonic realm is miserable without any love, according to Howard Pittman and his book Placebo. People on Earth, not alerted to Satan and the demonic menace upon the earth, will likely be funneled into the program in one way or another, thinking there is nothing wrong with our lives and society here, and none of this terrible darkness is happening. But when God's wrath comes upon the earth, and especially the appearance of Christ, then they will mourn, suddenly realizing they have chosen to serve Satan and the incomprehensible consequences thereof. The evil may have reached to the point where young people are already part of the program, and because conscious memory is controlled and their hearts are inwardly unified to them by their lifelong subliminal messaging and sexual pleasure association, almost no one except the most trusted servants of evil know what is really happening. One might consider Satan's purpose with the Alien franchise is to draw people into fascination with the alien concept and use that to lead people into positive association with Satan and the demonic realm. Then when you look at the rest of Geiger's work, you see these satanic, demonic, techno-erotic pictures, perhaps to indoctrinate people into these elements. It could also be part of the programming, where there are subliminal messages and things describing the demonic realm and how wonderful it is. Then one sees these pictures of satanic ritual and mechanized, beastly breeding, and there is a correlation to their subconscious, positive association programmed into them since childhood. Perhaps even just looking at this image brings its demonic influence into the mind. Sorry if I provided that here, but I think these need to be seen in order for this to be understood. This rendering is complex and interesting, showing a large hand in the center, perhaps symbolizing a higher authority like Satan, or perhaps the daughter of Babylon, Ishtar, overseeing what looks like a serpent-insectoid hybrid, giving birth to demonic spirits. Notice the faces on the born spirits looking demonic with these weird grins or groaning expressions, but also by the features of several beings seemingly merged into each other. I notice this merging of demonic entities, faces merging into faces, in my study of the shape-shifting phenomena. What you are seeing is video analysis, which shows non-human forms I have determined to be demons, which are beings in the spirit realm living in and around us. For more about this, see my YouTube channel, but my finding is that somehow the features of these spirit beings, which pack into our bodies by the thousands as I understand it, show up in video under certain circumstances. This may look like physical shape-shifting, but as I experimented on myself, who am not a physical shapeshifter, I learned that these spirit forms somehow manifest into what the camera sees, but do not reflect actual physical changes. The fact the camera seems to record them as actual flesh taking on demonic forms may tell us that people become like the spirit beasts indwelling them. After analyzing these demonic distortion or shape-shifting images, I noticed a continual theme of multiple evil-looking faces with reptilian slit eyes, fangs, huge mouths full of shark-type teeth, and all-sized demons from much bigger than the person to little marble-sized grinning faces. There is more on this topic, but I am mentioning it here because I think these spirit or ghost-like creatures shown in this and other renderings by Geiger are representative of these spirit beings or demons. In the lower left corner, among other demonic forms, is what looks like a gray-type alien. This might be a link between the gray-type aliens and the demonic realm. Here is an interesting connection to the Insectoids, which is a shape-shifting analysis I did on the movie Aliens, and the second movie in the Aliens franchise series. And in this few frames of a scene where the actress Sigourney Weaver is walking down the steps, her whole head turns into what looks like an insectoid. You can see the large oval-shaped insect eye and shell sections like you see on a grasshopper's head. There also seems to be an antenna or extrusions only visible as lines across the insectoid's face. The insect-like head only appears for a few frames of a 60 frames per second capture, meaning it is just a very short flash of an image that manifests. I do not know the mechanics of why you get these beast forms manifesting in frames of video, due apparently to demons living inside a person. Further, I do not know if this insectoid creature is of the same type that abductees describe seeing, or if this may represent an entirely different life form which just also happens to be insectoid. This is, however, a tangible proof there are insectoid beings of some kind in existence, and this proof is available right here in this DVD print of the movie Aliens. You want to see an insectoid alien? Here it is. Just take your camcorder to this scene toward the end of the movie and go through it frame by frame. You will see an insectoid being in a few of these frames. John Carpenter's The Thing, to me, is the best alien horror movie ever made. The concept of The Thing is an alien which attacks biologically, getting its cells into the body of the host and making a copy, which, partially completed, rips out of the body of the host in a bloody ripping apart of flesh. The first scene of encountering the alien is the scariest for me. A dog that was being shot at from a helicopter escapes and is put into the dog kennel with the other dogs. The direction is superb, and the creature effects man, Stan Winston, created the models. The camera slowly zooms in on the dog, and there is a hissing noise, followed by the other dogs in the cage, going crazy, barking at the newcomer. The dog sort of vibrates, and then the face of the dog rips open like a blooming flower of bloody flesh, and there are red tentacles whipping around like violent snakes. The body of the dog starts to rip open, and bloody, monstrous shapes emerge. You can see what looks like a bloody demon dog head with large, crooked teeth, hissing in rage. The rest of the dogs are barking at it like crazy, and this one dog is even trying to chew through the metal cage to escape. The scene flashes back a few times to the progress of that one dog chewing its way out of the cage. Out of the mass of bloody, writhing alien flesh, tentacles suddenly shoot out in every direction, grabbing at the other dogs. The scene pans to show the dog keeper standing, gawking, wide-eyed at the scene, and another one comes in to see what's happening. They are looking in the cage, and there is this one whimpering dog, hopelessly wrapped in bloody red alien tentacles, and, as though in response to the whimpering and struggling, a flood of more slimy tentacles shoot out from the demonic dog and fully wrap around the doomed, whimpering dog. But it still whimpers and struggles, its hair all wet with alien slime. Then this large, slimy, bone-white tube emerges from the gurgling alien mass under the angry, demonic dog, which is still snarling, the hairless, slimy dog with a hate-filled expression on its face. And then the end of the emerging tube opens up like a slimy flower. It then starts shooting at the dogs with a stream of liquid, and you see the panicked dogs being pelted with a hard stream of liquid and running about in panic trying to avoid it. The alien tube turns toward the men, who have a flamethrower, and one of them shouts, "Burn it!" As I mentioned, when I first saw this scene in the movie theater, I was so freaked out I got up and ran out of the theater. What happens is, people get infected, then the alien takes over on a cellular level, which they actually show in the movie in a computer simulation of the alien cells taking over the host cells. At a certain point of the takeover, it bursts out from the host and then attacks nearby non-infected people. If it is alone when it rips out, it transforms into a perfect copy of the host, which can look and act exactly like the original person. No one can trust anyone else, and trapped in an Arctic blizzard, they are engulfed in a terrifying battle with a ruthless and seemingly invincible enemy. The Thing is a far worse alien because all it needs to do is get a single one of its cells into your body, and then you are doomed, as an alien creature will eventually kill you from within, ripping out of your body in a bloody and terrible rending of your flesh. There is a truly terrifying element, which is that you are not simply killed by the alien, but in a sense, you become it. Even though a main alien emerges, other parts of your body can rip off and grow into a separate alien. I think this adds to the horror of it, because it goes beyond just killing you, but you get taken over and become one of them. I think this is similar to the scary elements of the movie The Body Snatchers, where these aliens take over a person in a similar fashion, though that movie did not have the terrifying element of your body being ripped open in a bloody mass of writhing alien tentacles. Several people I have heard over the years since John Carpenter's The Thing aired in theaters agree it stands as one of the best science fiction horror movies of all time. I think one of the things that made it stand out was the mysterious nature of the monster itself. One is left wondering what the alien itself might really look like apart from the angry, bloody, demonic-looking, half-copied form of one of its victims. There is an intended original form, however, which does not become as apparent until the second movie. In the second movie, we see unmistakable insectoid features, even what might be described as praying mantis-type limbs. One can see in these screenshots from the movie insect-type appendages, claw or talon-type limbs with insect characteristics. One can see clearly in these creature models that the alien of The Thing is intended to be an insect life form. The skeptic can easily point out that insects are one of the scariest life forms we have on Earth, and so it is a ready choice for movie makers to choose it as a basis for a fiction monster. On the other hand, if there are aliens out there of many different kinds, why wouldn't some of them be insectoid? And why wouldn't they have advanced biowarfare to defend or expand their empire? Again, as with the alien movies, the idea of biological warfare seems to emerge. The Thing poses a truly interesting idea in this regard, because humanity is well acquainted with the horrific ravages microorganisms can cause as disease. It spreads quickly, invisible because it is too small to see, yet massive death and suffering result. In fact, more people have died of disease than war, murder, and natural disaster combined. Here we have an alien which uses microorganisms to infect the bodies of its victims, with the result being an extremely fast cellular takeover. If one considers this from an interplanetary situation over millions of years, it does not seem too far-fetched that something like this might have developed. Consider that we are aware that entire divisions of our own American government are devoted to the development of biological warfare, and think if targeted diseases such as AIDS are allegedly already in use, what a mere 1,000 years might lead to. What about 1,000,000 years? It makes perfect sense that in an interplanetary situation of many alien groups competing for planets and resources, that war and domination or submission and survival or annihilation would result in the thinking that control of the biological is the ultimate supremacy platform. Even if most sentient beings on most worlds decided that delving into this would lead to unimaginable horror, there would still be groups who, realizing an element of survival is being strong against any biological attack, would engage in the most advanced biological weaponry possible. This would force the hand of other aliens to do the same, or face a deadly biowarfare attack unprepared. The reality as an ultimate conclusion dictates that no science-wielding sentient group of beings can ignore the biowarfare issue, and given literally thousands, if not millions of years of scientific development, it is likely that at least several alien groups on several worlds out there in the cosmos would have means of biological attack surpassing our current imagination. It is more likely that many aliens would have this, and as always, hostilities would break out eventually, and those weapons would be used. Life forms that self-propagate quickly and on a large scale have the best chance of survival, so a biological attack would naturally be self-replicating and able to spread quickly. It would have to attack invasively and not be easily dispatched by the body's defense mechanisms. And it would have to have motivation or instinct to use its host quickly to spread to other hosts. This is because, as we see in the movies, when the group of potential hosts become aware of the invading organism, they will do everything in their power to destroy infected hosts. For this reason, the invading organism might need a way to disguise its presence. Therefore, the logic might be that making a perfect copy of the host is most logical, as if the infected host is still somehow apparent, it would be detected. It must act intelligently to not be detected, and for this, it would have to assimilate the host's memories as well. This means that the cell-sized invading organism would have to have all this information encoded onto it. And there you have something like the alien from The Thing. Once again, consider the elements involved if this movie franchise is in fact something more than mere entertainment, but a vision of reality. In the real alien abduction hybridization program, we have the abduction of humans against their will and impregnation with alien-human hybrid children, who are then in turn abducted and have likewise done to them. This is a more gradual form of takeover than The Thing, but is really quite similar. Both the real aliens and the fictional alien of The Thing use secrecy and hiding among us with our appearance, but they are not us under the skin. Both are mysterious. We really do not know who and what they are, or what their goals are. Another distinct feature of the alien itself in The Thing is a demonic appearance to the half-formed copy of the host. Notice with the dog in the beginning of the first movie, it has a distinctly angry look, and then the scene with the head that splits off from the body and grows spider legs. The main copy of the host has these large fangs in an angry expression. This, I suppose, makes the outburst of the alien more scary, but it does not match the feature of the host it is in the process of copying. In the last scene of the alien in the original The Thing, you see what looks like a giant dinosaur head on the alien, which has these huge oversized teeth. Could it be that the visionary for the movie, John Carpenter, or the Beast creator, Dale Cooper, was tapping into the subconscious awareness of the demonic realm? In fact, one line in the second movie of The Thing, a guy calls a suspected infected person a demon. It's just something to label a monster, you do not know what it is, but the sense I get from it is that there is a message of some kind coming through the movie, and in the case of this use of the word demon, it is significant. Could it be that humans are unaware of the reality of this other dimension, the demonic realm, or fourth dimension as some other type of truthers call it, which dimension is a more hostile environment where creatures such as these actually exist? There is a sense in looking at the monster features in The Thing that it is like an evil force, not just an alien from outer space. The angry expression and oversized teeth might be characteristic of real creatures, as I believe the video analysis I have made of demons shows. In particular, I noticed the large mouth with the huge, seemingly impractical teeth as a common feature of these demons or devils. The main thing I understand about demons is that they indwell our bodies and control our behavior. They can influence what we do or control us completely, depending on their strength in our bodies. Listen to this scripture describing the character of demons. Matthew 8:28. And when he was come to the other side of the country of the Gergesenes, there met him two possessed with devils, coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass by that way. Notice the nature of the spirit beings, the devils that possess the men, that they were exceedingly fierce. This matches the evil expression on the faces of the beings I was able to capture on video, and it matches the creatures in The Thing. Notice that the men, when they are possessed, essentially take on the character of these creatures because they have hijacked his body. This feature of controlling the bodies of their host victims is further exemplified in this scripture, Matthew 8:32. And he said unto them, Go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine, and behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea, and perished in the waters. Notice that the devils must not have full control of the pigs, because they wanted to rest in them, which Jesus describes how the demons seek rest in people's bodies. Therefore, perhaps the pigs sought to destroy themselves once the evil spirits had entered into them, because they hated those evil spirits. In this scene from the second The Thing movie, you see the head of a woman infected with the alien virus looking at the people watching it. It is still the woman's head, but the indwelling alien is using it to see. It is still the face of the woman, but it is no longer her. This aspect of being infected by the Thing alien is partly what is so terrifying, because it is still you, but now you are hopelessly taken over by the alien. It may be that the terrifying quality of the Thing is that it works on two levels, both of which address the reality we face. These two elements are the spiritual and the physical, the latter of which we might understand is a manifestation of the former. In other words, the reason or cause of the terrifying physical aspect of the Thing is the underlying spiritual source, or demons, from the demonic realm. As I have considered demons since being able to capture them in video, it is normally that we think of demons as being created for the single purpose of corrupting man, and our thoughts about them do not extend to their full backstory, such as how they live from day to day. I saw in a video in which a man described seeing a city, but that people could not see it because it was not in our dimension. My guess would be it was the demonic realm or dimension. He said the city was beautiful and highly organized, much more organized and magnificent than any human city we know of. This description matches what Christian writer Howard Pittman says in his book Placebo, in which he witnessed that God showed him the demonic realm all around us. He said in particular that the demons of all shapes and sizes were highly organized, to the extent anyone would be proud to have them as a working force. So here we have two examples from different sources saying a feature of the demons is that they are highly organized, not just aimless spirits or monsters running about causing havoc. We might not consider that creatures with monstrous animal features would be highly organized, hard-working, and efficient, but in fact it appears they are even more so than humans. Notice this aspect of being highly organized and efficient matches what contactee Simon Parks describes about the Mantis aliens' abduction program, in which he says that Mantis aliens have a complete schedule of abductions planned to the minute year-round. This matches what Dr. David Jacobs describes as the abducting aliens being purpose-driven in everything they do, with nothing frivolous or acting out of whim as humans. In fact, Jacobs goes into extensive detail about the efficiency and driven nature of the insect-typed aliens, as he was able to extrapolate these details from abductee regressions. So what does this tell us about the aliens? Is there a question about what else they do when they are not abducting humans that is useful for us to know? For analysis, let us say the abducting mantis aliens and their gray human insectoid hybrid servants are in fact demons from the demonic dimension with the technology to cross over into our dimension. What does their industrious and efficient nature tell us about them? One thing it says to me is that these beings have a whole life, society, and motivation in living that is behind the abduction hybrid program, and understanding this would answer the question of why they are doing it. I touched upon this previously, which is that sustenance for at least one alien type is apparently derived from both our physical and spiritual bodies, with meat lockers and restaurants that serve human meat on Mars, according to Peggy Kane, and other stories about people's souls being trapped in orbital nets or sucked into containers. Could this be the motivation behind the abduction program, wherein hybrids can be controlled and thus herd other humans into the meat supply? Could it be the hybrid infiltration in the noted aspect of installing leaders and trendsetters have the purpose of making society lean toward the corruption of souls and turning people against any ideas or people that are working for salvation? Could it be the mantis aliens, along with the reptilians, are well aware that sin destroys souls and make those destroyed souls allies to devils in the work of dragging as many other souls to destruction as they can? Could it be the abducting aliens know full well that every time man sins, he comes closer and closer to ruin, by which he can then belong to them as food?